Jake had always been passionate about motorcycles. When he was young, he spent countless hours in the garage with his dad, tinkering with engines and learning to ride. This passion blossomed into a hobby that connected him with like-minded friends. Together they formed a club, not out of formality, but simply for the joy of riding as a group. Now, in his mid-40s, Jake found solace and a sense of belonging in these gatherings, which offered a much-needed escape from his chaotic life. Jake's dedication to his work had taken a toll on his personal life, leading to a painful divorce and a strained relationship with his son. Seeking a fresh start, he relocated to Cornwall, hoping to rebuild his life. The bike club became his refuge, a place where he could forget his troubles and enjoy the camaraderie and freedom of the open road. On September 19, 1998, the club's annual barbecue was in full swing, with food and drinks flowing freely. More than a dozen motorcycles were parked among the dunes. This event marked the end of the season for the close-knit group of friends. Jake, a tall man with broad shoulders and a full beard, noticed her arrival. She stood out in a long denim skirt, a thick sweater, and an overcoat on this unusually warm evening, while others wore swimsuits. Jake approached her and invited her to join their group. He recognized the signs of distress in her disheveled hair and tired eyes, a look he knew all too well. She declined and moved further down the beach. Back with his friends, Jake faced some teasing, especially from Mike, who joked about his interest in her. "She's not just some bag lady, Mike. Her clothes are expensive. She looks really troubled." Mike, a stockbroker by day and a biker by night, was Jake's friend and financial advisor. He put an arm around Jake, saying, "She's not your problem. Come on, let's get back to the party." As the evening continued, Jake kept an eye on the woman. Despite enjoying the festivities, she occupied his thoughts. As darkness fell and the party wound down, Jake noticed her still sitting alone. When the last bike left, he walked through the dunes to where she sat. She appeared to be waiting for something. As the tide retreated, she walked towards the water. Sensing her intent, Jake ran after her, stripping off his clothes. The water was up to her knees when he reached her. He called out, but she ignored him. As the waves crashed against her thighs, Jake swam towards her. Just as she was about to throw herself into the tide, he grabbed her waist. Startled, she screamed and struggled. "I'm sorry, I can't let you do this," Jake shouted over the waves. "Leave me alone. I want to die," she screamed back. "If we go further, we'll both drown. Is that what you want?" Jake turned her to face him. "Let me go. I don't want to live anymore. If you go out there, I'll have to try to rescue you. I'm not a good swimmer, and we'll probably both die. Please, save my life and come out of the water." She looked into his eyes, tears streaming down her face. Deep sobs shook her body. Jake hugged her, and they stood in the surf, battling the waves. Then he led her back to the dry sand, picking up his scattered clothes. "I think this coat is ruined. The skirt might be salvageable, but the sweater is done for. You should change out of them before you get too cold. Here, put on my jeans and sweatshirt. I have a jacket in the pickup I can wear over my swimsuit." The woman looked at Jake expectantly as she reached to unfasten her skirt. "Turn around, please," she said. Jake apologized and turned his back, hoping she wouldn't run back to the sea. "It's all right. You can look now." He turned and burst out laughing. The jeans were too long, and she had to hold the waistband to keep them up. The sweatshirt sleeves covered her hands. "Sorry for laughing, but that outfit fits where it touches. Let me roll the legs up. There's some rope in the pickup we can use as a belt." Jake knelt and rolled up the jeans until Helen wasn't standing on them. When he stood, he smiled at her. "Now that you've managed to get into my jeans, I think I deserve to know your name," he said. "It's Helen. Helen Mallister," she replied. "Nice to meet you, Helen. I'm Jake Lawson. Let's find you a belt and get off this beach before it gets cold," Jake said. They walked to the pickup and Jake found a rope, threading it through the jeans and pulling it tight around her waist. They got into the truck and Jake turned it around. "Jake, why are you doing this?" Helen asked. "Because I want to, and because I owe someone," Jake said. He would have said more, but he saw something in the moonlight. A tall, athletic woman in a white swimsuit. She pushed her dark hair back as she strode out of the surf. Jake reached out, shaking Helen's leg. "Do you see that out there?" he asked, pointing toward the horizon. "See what?" "All I can make out are waves and sand," Hannah responded. Jake squinted, but there was nothing unusual. He shook his head, feeling slightly disoriented. "Jake, are you okay?" Hannah asked with a touch of concern in her voice. "I'm fine," he said, snapping back to reality. "Let's get you some fish and chips. I'm guessing it's been a while since you had a good meal." Jake drove towards Padstow, stealing glances at Hannah to gauge how she was holding up. He hoped that a bit of kindness would make a difference. "What do you mean you owe someone?" Hannah asked, breaking the silence. "A long time ago, someone helped me in a way I can never repay, so now I try to pay it forward." "Ask me more about it later," Jake said. "Where exactly are we going for fish and chips?" Hannah inquired. They continued in silence until Jake parked the truck. He quickly got out, opened Hannah's door, and led her to the shop. "I thought you meant fish and chips. This looks like a fancy restaurant," Hannah said, a bit confused. "It's just a chip shop. The fancy restaurant is across town. They know me here," Jake explained. The man behind the counter greeted Jake warmly. "Hey, Jake, are you expecting a crowd tonight?" Brian asked. "Not tonight, Brian. Just need a table for two," Jake replied. "Sorry, Jake. We're closed," Brian said. Jake glanced around the empty shop. "Brian, I can see you're overwhelmed with all these customers," Jake said sarcastically. "Could you put some cod and chips on a plate for the lady and a chip buddy for me? I'll even help with the dishes," Jake added with a grin. Brian chuckled. "You helping with dishes? That'll be the day. Do you want any drinks?" Brian asked. "I'll have a coffee, and the lady might prefer a hot chocolate," Jake suggested. "All right, you two go sit down, and I'll bring them over," Brian instructed. Jake went to the restroom and returned to find the food waiting on the table. Hannah's eyes looked a bit brighter, a bit more alive. "They must think a lot of you around here," Hannah observed. "Brian's a good friend. He's a biker at heart, too," Jake said. "The waitress spoke highly of you," Hannah mentioned. "What waitress?" "The place is closed," Jake said, confused. "The one who was wiping the tables. Tall, mid-30s, dark hair, brown eyes, nice figure," Hannah described. Jake looked around the empty restaurant. "Point her out to me," he said. "She's gone now, but she said you were the nicest man she knew," Hannah insisted. Jake shook his head. "The restaurant closed half an hour ago. All the staff have gone home. Brian is the only one here," Jake explained. "I know what I saw and heard. She said good things about you," Hannah affirmed. "No doubt. Your description just sounds like someone I used to know. But it couldn't be her," Jake said, shaking his head. He nodded towards her plate. "Eat up and tell me what you think," he suggested. Jake glanced at Hannah asleep beside him in the truck. She'd enjoyed her meal but couldn't finish it, and now she was completely worn out. When he parked in his driveway and turned off the engine, she didn't stir. Jake gently closed the truck door, opened his front door, then returned to carry Hannah inside. He took her to the guest bedroom, removed the rope belt, his jeans, and the sweatshirt. Despite her disheveled appearance, he found her quite beautiful. Covering her with a duvet, he whispered, "Sweet dreams, fair princess," and left the room. Jake locked up the truck and settled down with a glass of wine, reflecting on what might have driven Hannah to such a desperate state. It didn't seem to be about money, judging by her expensive clothes. Memories of his ex-wife Jackie briefly surfaced, but he pushed them aside, focusing on Hannah instead. He set her clothes to wash and went to bed, contemplating the day's events before picking up his book. Just after midnight, Hannah appeared in Jake's bedroom doorway. "I'm sorry, I just wanted to make sure this wasn't a dream," she said. "Couldn't you sleep?" Jake asked. "I woke up somewhere unfamiliar and panicked. Did you undress me?" Hannah inquired. "Yes, but I left your underwear on. Your skirt is in the wash," Jake replied. "Thank you. I don't have anything clean to sleep in. Do you have something I can wear?" Hannah asked. "I have some long shirts in the wardrobe and t-shirts in the second drawer," Jake said. Hannah took a shirt and went to the bathroom. Jake heard the shower running and then felt the bed move as she climbed in. "Would you hold me? I really need someone to hold me," she said softly. She sobbed as he held her. When she calmed down, They both drifted off to sleep. Jake woke up alone, showered, and went to the kitchen where he found Hannah making coffee and toast. "I was going to start breakfast but didn't know what you liked. Do you have an iron? My skirt is full of creases," Hannah said. Jake grabbed the iron and ironing board. "How do eggs and bacon sound for breakfast?" he asked. Hannah nodded. As they ate, she kept stealing glances at Jake, noticing both warmth and sorrow in his eyes. He gently tried to encourage her to open up. "Would you like to talk about what happened last night?" Jake asked. "I don't want to unload my issues onto you. You've already done so much for me." "I should probably leave," Hannah replied. "You can leave if you want, but it might be tricky with just your skirt and underwear. I can drive you wherever you need to go," Jake said. Jake noticed a gold wedding band on her left hand, accompanied by a diamond ring. "I see you're married. Do you want to call your husband and let him know where you are?" he asked. Hannah started crying again. Jake immediately understood, moved closer, and held her as she wept. "So it's husband troubles. What happened?" he inquired softly. "I don't have a husband anymore. He's divorcing me," Hannah sobbed. Jake held her hands, waiting for her to calm down. "Is that why you were at the beach last night?" Jake asked. "Partly. I'm usually the one people rely on. I manage a team of accountants helping clients with their taxes. Now I can't even handle my own life," Hannah said. "That's not silly at all. Divorce is as painful as losing someone you love," Jake reassured her. "There were no signs. We were married for 10 years and trying to start a family. 3 weeks ago he told me he loved someone else and moved out," Hannah explained. "But that was 3 weeks ago. What's happened since then?" Jake asked. "I saw him with her on Friday at a baby store. She's pregnant. She's giving him the child I couldn't. I felt worthless and unloved. I ended up here without thinking," Hannah said, her voice quivering. "Do you still feel that way?" Jake asked gently. "I don't know. I don't think so." She squeezed Jake's hands. "If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be here. I owe it to both of us to make the best of it," Hannah said, her voice gaining strength. "Then we've got a busy day ahead. You need clothes, and you should talk to Angie," Jake suggested. "I lost my purse last night. Everything was in it. My ID, credit cards, and cash," Hannah said. "Does a motorcycle mechanic make enough to loan me some money?" she asked with a faint smile. "I'm not a mechanic. I own the dealership. Don't worry about the money." "Who is Angie?" Jake explained. "The blonde girl at the party. She's a top solicitor. She can help you with the divorce. You may not want it, but she can make sure you don't lose out," Jake said. "Is there anything you haven't thought of?" Hannah asked, half joking. "Yes, how I'll ever wear that shirt again without thinking of you in it. Now go dry your hair, pick a clean shirt, and we'll head to town for some clothes and shoes," Jake said with a smile. Hannah almost smiled as she went to get dressed. The town wasn't ideal for shopping on a Sunday, but they managed to find enough to get her through a few days. As they drove, Hannah observed Jake more closely. His dark beard and gray hair suggested he was around 45. He had a strong, tanned physique that showed he spent a lot of time outdoors. She remembered feeling safe in his arms. What had possessed her to climb into his bed? Yet she felt relieved when he turned away, letting her snuggle against his back. By 2 p.m. they had bought her clothes and shoes. They sat at a cafe sipping coffee and making plans. Jake called Angie and arranged a visit. After a light lunch, he gave her a tour of the area. Hannah noticed Jake's confidence and the respect he received. She wondered why a man with so much going for him was alone and seemed sad. At Angie's, Jake left Hannah with her while he and John, Angie's husband, talked bikes over beers. After an hour, Hannah, looking tearful, asked to go home. On the drive back, Jake decided to ask about her meeting with Angie. "How did it go with Angie?" Jake asked. "She echoed what you said. I can't stop the divorce, so I need to secure the best settlement. She suggested trying IVF with a new partner and using the settlement for that. She helped me see it wasn't my fault. My husband didn't leave me because I couldn't have children. He found out after he started cheating," Hannah replied. Hannah then began to dig deeper. "Jake, who is Wellard?" she asked. "What?" Jake responded, clearly caught off guard. Angie mentioned that if I wanted to really know you, I should ask about Wellard, Hannah explained. Wellard is me. It's a nickname, Jake clarified. How did you get that nickname? Hannah inquired, curiosity piqued. It happened at the St. Paul's Carnival in Bristol. It's a huge event that attracts a lot of people, but the National Front held a rally on the same day. There was some trouble, Jake began. And you were involved? Hannah asked, leaning in. Not exactly. I don't go looking for trouble, but I can't turn a blind eye to certain things. A young kid, about 17, was attacked by some National Front skinheads. The police at the station did nothing, so I rode my bike straight at them. They scattered, but one came back with a knife. I knocked him out with my helmet. Angie, my lawyer friend, sorted it out with the police. The guy I knocked out was a repeat offender, Jake recounted. But why Wellard? Hannah pressed further. Jake smiled. The kid I helped said, "You is Wellard for an old guy." The name stuck and my biker friends started calling me that, he explained. So you're not just my hero, you're everyone's knight in shining armor, Hannah remarked. I'm just trying to do the right thing, Jake said humbly. I'm glad you do. Whatever brought me to your beach did me a huge favor, Hannah said, leaning on his shoulder. Can I cook for you tonight? Absolutely, if that's what you want, Jake agreed. She got excited, feeling the strength in his muscles as she squeezed his arm. While cooking, she kept glancing at Jake, feeling drawn to him. She wanted him but wasn't sure how to make a move. She thought about the previous night when he had done nothing. Maybe he doesn't fancy me. She decided to take a chance and make herself vulnerable again. For the first time in 2 years, Jake enjoyed a home-cooked meal that he hadn't prepared himself. He couldn't take his eyes off Hannah as she moved around the kitchen. He admired her trim waist and remembered the sight of her lying on the bed. When they finished eating, she made him coffee and then kissed him on the lips. Jake responded, pulling her onto his lap. They kissed passionately. Hannah pulled away to catch her breath. Well, that answers one question. You're straight, she teased with a hint of mischief in her voice. Of course, who said I wasn't? Jake replied, surprised. No one. People always say what a lovely man you are, yet there's no woman in your life. I just wondered, Hannah explained. Are you satisfied now that you know I'm straight? You were at my mercy last night, but I didn't try to seduce you. Maybe you think I don't find you attractive, Jake said. Hannah shook her head. No, I don't think that. I'm just glad to know you, she said softly, resting her head on his shoulder. Hannah looked into his eyes, hoping he would say it wasn't true. She wanted him to take her in his arms and love her. She waited for his reply, holding her breath. If I'd taken advantage of you last night, I'd have lost your respect. I turned away so you wouldn't notice what was happening to me. As for not finding you attractive, I think I've just shown that I do. Her heart raced. She wanted him but wondered if she should make the first move. She loved his gentlemanly nature, but feared it might hold him back. She decided to act. I'm glad. It makes this easier. You've been so good to me, and I need to ask another favor. Would you make love to me, please? She looked down, her red hair falling across her face. Jake could hardly believe it. It had been almost 2 years since he'd been with anyone. He thought about it and realized she was grateful to him. He struggled to respond, his face reddening. Hannah, I'm flattered, but making love is important to me. I don't want to do it out of obligation or gratitude. It has to be because we care for each other. Hannah was silent for a moment. I should feel insulted, but I don't. I'm not offering my body as a thank you. I'm asking because you're the most wonderful man I've ever met. My head is a mess, but this isn't gratitude. I want you. If you didn't care, you'd have left me to the police or a hospital. So I'll ask again. Please, Jake, take me upstairs and make love to me, Hannah said earnestly. She took his hand, and they went upstairs to his bedroom. They stood by the bed, and Jake kissed her. She looked into his eyes. I've never kissed a man with a beard before. It feels soft and tickles my nose, she giggled. Jake pulled her close, their kissing intensifying. They made love. If I can stay here, you might not have to wait long, Hannah said. She lay close to him, and Jake put his arm around her. I could lie like this forever. Can I stay, Jake? She asked softly. You can stay as long as you want, he replied, kissing her. I think I need a shower. Is there room for two? She asked playfully. They showered together, then returned to bed, snuggled up, and fell asleep. Hannah woke up with a loving gaze fixed on Jake. Jake was awakened in a way he had never experienced before. Oh, you're awake. I thought I'd have to start the party alone. Wow, you were right. It was better, she said, kissing him. You've been so good to me, I don't deserve this, she added. You think it's one-sided. You gave me the best night of my life, Jake replied. Hannah, you deserve everything I can give you and more, he said warmly. They kissed, and Hannah got up. Jake realized he would be late for work for the first time since he bought the business, but he wanted to savor his time with her. Over breakfast, they discussed their plans. Jake had to work, and Hannah planned to visit the bank to repay him. That evening, Jake found her upset. The bank had refused her access to her accounts without proper ID, which had been in her lost purse. Jake assured her it was no problem, but she felt the need for independence. I must go home, Jake. I need to sort things out. I have a job, and my company will want to know why I missed work. I've canceled my cards, but replacements will be sent to my home. My passport is there too. Once I have it, I can prove who I am and access my money, Hannah explained. She saw the sadness in his eyes as she continued. Can you do me a favor and buy me a train ticket back to Radlett? I'll repay you as soon as I access my bank accounts, she asked. The money isn't important, Hannah. I don't want you to leave. I love having you here, Jake said, his voice thick with emotion. And I love being here. Honestly, I think I'm falling for you, but I need to take control of my life. There's so much to do. Get my finances in order, deal with my possessions and clothes. Douglas has moved out, so I'm selling the house. You understand, Jake? I have a new life ahead, hopefully with you, but I need to wrap up my old life first. This isn't the end, Jake. It's more like the beginning if you want it to be, she said. You know what I want. If getting you back means I lose you for a while, then that's what I must do, Jake said, his heart heavy. That night they were together again, and it was even better than before. The next morning, Jake drove her to the station, feeling the weight of her imminent departure. They arrived just as the London train left. With an hour to wait for the next one, they settled in the station cafe. Jake, when I asked why you helped me, you said you owed someone. It didn't seem like money. Can you tell me what you owe and to whom? Hannah asked, her curiosity piqued. Her name is Vanessa Richardson, and I owe her my life. It's nothing financial, just something I can never repay, Jake replied, looking down. You can't leave it at that. We have time. Tell me the story, Hannah urged. Are you sure? It's a long story and you might not like it, Jake warned. Just tell me, Jake, Hannah insisted, leaning closer. Jake took a deep breath and began. All right, the story begins 2 years ago. I founded a software company, Lawson Software Solutions LSS, right out of college. It took off because everyone was buying PCs, and Windows made them easier to use. We developed commercial software like office suites and accounting packages. We did well and floated the company on the stock market, keeping 60% of the shares, which gave my wife Jackie and me control. We also gained a business partner with management expertise. Things were good for a while, but demand for our software declined. Even Microsoft was developing hardware. I knew we couldn't rely on our current model forever, so I explored new revenue streams. We focused on bespoke software for businesses and developing digital TV boxes. My partner Simon opposed these ideas, but with 60% of the shares, Jackie and I had the final say. This marked the beginning of our troubles. I traveled around the country, securing contracts for bespoke software, neglecting my family. I was focused on the company's growth and could have sold the company for a lot of money, but I felt responsible for my employees and wanted to build something for my son. I didn't realize I wasn't giving my family the attention they deserved. Then I landed our biggest deal, a contract to develop firmware for digital TV set-top boxes. It secured our future. I was ecstatic and planned to make it up to Jackie with a holiday. When I got home, I was surprised to see Simon's car. Inside, Jackie, Simon, and my 17-year-old son Ian were on the sofa waiting for me. I excitedly told them the news, but no one reacted. Simon finally said, "Sit down, Jake." Confused, I sat down. He explained, "We've shut down the development section and laid off the staff. The company can't afford it, so we're sticking to what we know." "On whose authority?" I demanded. "Jackie and I have a controlling interest. I'm the CEO." Jackie's hands rested on Simon's, clearly showing her support. "We had an emergency shareholders meeting yesterday and voted you off the board," Simon said. "We're profitable without funding your projects." "This has nothing to do with you sleeping with my wife?" I asked, the hand movement suggesting more than business. "No, that's separate. This is business." "I'm grateful to Jackie for her support," Simon replied. Jackie added, "Hez right, your spending was out of control. We had to stop you before you ruined the company." "Really, Jackie? Whose bed were you in when he told you that?" She handed me an envelope containing divorce papers, citing irreconcilable differences. "I won't take you to the cleaners, Jake. You've been a good husband, but it's not working anymore. I hope we can still be friends." "Friends? You steal my company, sleep with the enemy, and expect to remain friends? Did you ever know me at all?" "I hope you'll change your mind once you've calmed down. We still have our son to think about. We should try to get along. I'll be leaving with Simon tonight. Maybe you'll reconsider when we're gone." Half an hour before I was on top of the world. Now it was falling apart. My 17-year-old son sat there silently. "Ian, what's your part in this?" "I'm going to live with Mom and Simon." "So he's taken my company, my wife, and now my son. Is that it?" "What do you expect, Dad? Everyone knows you're rich, but I never saw any benefit. You made me go to the local school when you could afford private fees. That school made me what I am. No one owes you a living, son. You won a scholarship for the public school 6th form." "No, I didn't. Simon paid the fees because you wouldn't. It's the easy route to top universities. So you're selling me out for 2 years' school fees and a new car?" I put my hand to my forehead. God, where did I go wrong with you? Simon and Jackie stood up. Simon turned to me. "Jake, I know this is a lot to take in. We should leave you alone for a while." He offered his right hand, but maybe he forgot I was left-handed. "Strictly business, Jake. Nothing personal." I gripped his right hand and punched him with my left, knocking him to the floor. "You've stolen my company and family. Of course it's personal. Now get out of my house." I looked at Jackie. "Are you planning to marry him?" "Yes, as soon as the divorce is final." "Remember, Jackie, when a man marries his mistress, it creates a vacancy." "What do you mean?" "I'm sure you'll figure it out. Maybe Simon will help you." Jackie helped Simon up and they walked out. Ian followed silently. As I closed the door, I felt empty. My life had revolved around my wife and company since university. Later, my son became important. In less than an hour, it was all gone. On TV, people in my position reach for a bottle. I never understood that. I drink when I'm happy, and I certainly wasn't. I sat trying to decide what to do, but no answers came. I wandered the house, trying to find something to feel happy about. It got dark, then light again, but it meant nothing. I heard the phone ringing somewhere, but I ignored it. I remembered holidays in Cornwall with my parents. Both were dead, but the happiness of those times pulled at me. I knew I had to go there. I walked out of the house. I ended up on the beach where I'd played as a child and where I met you. I didn't know why I was there. It didn't make me happy. It just made me miss my parents more. The tide was going out, and I walked into the ocean. It seemed fitting to end my empty life in a place full of happy memories. As I walked further, suddenly she was there, standing in the sea. She was about 510 inches with long dark hair and a white swimsuit. She looked at me and spoke. "This is not the way, Jake. Turn around and let's go back." "Why? What's the point?" "There's no reason to go back." There is always a reason to live. There are things you have to do, people you have to meet. "What are you talking about? And how do you know my name?" "I'm talking about you. It's not your time. If you go further, I'll have to save you. Turn around and come with me." She offered her hand. "Come with me, Jake." "Who are you? Do I know you?" "My name is Vanessa, and no, you don't know me, but I know you. Please, come with me. I took her hand and followed her out of the waves. She walked gracefully, her long dark hair flowing behind her. She led me to a house nestled in the dunes, an old colonial-style bungalow. Once inside, she released my hand and disappeared for a few moments. When she returned, she handed me a towel and directed me to the bathroom for a shower. Still in a daze, I moved slowly. Suddenly, she was there, helping me out of my clothes and into the shower. I stood motionless under the water as she joined me, washing my hair and hugging me as she cleaned my back. You're in shock, but don't worry. I can help you. You look like you haven't slept in days, she said, leading me to the bedroom. Well, start by fixing that. Still unclothed, she put me to bed. I woke up gently, finding it dark outside. An arm was around me, and for a moment I thought it was Jackie, and that it had all been a terrible dream. I reached for the bedside lamp, but it wasn't there. Panic set in. What's going on, Jackie? Where are we? The light came on, and I saw it wasn't Jackie but Vanessa. Everything came flooding back. Oh God, it wasn't a dream, was it? Vanessa took my chin and kissed me. No, Jake, it wasn't a dream. It all happened, but it doesn't have to be as bad as you think. Look at me, Jake. Don't you like what you see? Yes, you're beautiful. Any man would be lucky to wake up with you, but you're not the woman I love. Are you still in love with her? I don't know anymore. She doesn't love me. Don't be too hard on her or yourself, Jake. You know why he seduced her. The question is, do you want her back? I don't think so. She chose Simon over me. I'd always feel second best. She kissed me. Never think of yourself as second best, Jake. Now, are you going to use this weapon, or do I have to wait another day? What do you mean, another day? It's 2 a.m. You've been sleeping for 30 hours straight. I'm a normal woman with normal needs, and it's been a long time for me. When I share a bed with a hot man, I get excited. Vanessa pulled me closer and kissed me deeply. I'm sorry, Vanessa. Can we take it slower? I'm not sure I can handle this yet. She smiled and kissed my forehead. So that's not a no, just a not now. I needed to use the bathroom. When I returned to bed, Vanessa was asleep, or pretending to be. I got into bed and spooned her. I slept fitfully and woke at 7 a.m. to the smell of coffee. I saw Vanessa passing the end of the hallway, wearing a short silk robe. She brought 2 cups of coffee to the bedroom. Well, that was a pleasant surprise, she whispered. Your wife was lucky. She thinks she still is with a new lover now. I know all about it, Jake. It's her loss. How can you say that? I hardly know you. I lay back down beside her. She stroked my face. And that's what you do for someone you hardly know? I can only imagine what it's like for someone you care for. Take my word for it. It's her loss. Now how about breakfast and then a swim? Jake was nudged back to the present by Hannah. Yes, I spent nearly 6 weeks with her. We hit the beach, swam, worked on our tans, and indulged in lovemaking, sometimes even in broad daylight. In the evenings, we talked endlessly. I confided in her about the void I felt after building a company, making money, and then losing my family and business. Vanessa wouldn't accept my self-pity. She reminded me of all my accomplishments and the people who benefited from my work. Her desire for me restored my confidence. I started to fall for her, but she insisted a relationship between us wasn't feasible. As the days grew shorter, she said she had to leave soon. The night before she left, we talked. She told me I needed to return and reclaim my life. You're not a quitter. You came here because you were lost. Now you have the chance to take your life in a new direction. That night, our lovemaking was tender and bittersweet. The next day, she drove me to the station in her sleek white Audi Quattro. We said our farewells. How will I know when you're back? I asked. Look for me on the beach. If I come back, that's where it'll be. So Vanessa is the one you owe. And in a way, I guess I owe her my life too, Hannah said. Yes, that's accurate. If it hadn't been for her, I wouldn't have been on that beach. And if I hadn't been there, I wouldn't have recognized the look in your eyes, Jake replied. And you couldn't let me do it because you owed Vanessa, Hannah concluded. That's not the whole truth. I could never have let you go through with it, Jake corrected her. I know things are never that hopeless. I needed to show you that, Jake said gently. So what happened when you went back and why didn't you ever find Vanessa? Hannah asked. her eyes bright with curiosity. Jake took a deep breath, ready to share his story. This is where things get strange. I noticed something was off during the train ride home. I bought a newspaper to catch up on the 6 weeks I'd been away without any news. I was stunned to see that the events from the day my life collapsed were still making headlines. According to the paper, only 10 days had passed. I thought it was an old issue, so I went to the newsstand. The vendor insisted it was the current edition and pointed to the date. I checked my train ticket and it matched the date on the paper. Feeling embarrassed and confused, I returned to my seat. When the conductor came by, he confirmed the date on my ticket. I tried to accept it and distracted myself with the crossword. I got home in the afternoon to find my answering machine blinking. The first few messages were trivial, then my secretary left a message urging me to call her immediately, even providing her home number. Then Jackie's anxious voice pleaded for me to pick up. My lawyer left a message saying we needed to talk. More messages from my secretary followed, expressing her worry about me. Jackie left another message saying she still loved me and needed to know I was okay. Hearing that was painful. I knew I wouldn't call her back. I called my lawyer, Stuart Mackenzie, who had been with my company since the beginning. He confirmed that Jackie and a man named Hamilton had tried to access company files, claiming I was no longer CEO. He had blocked them until he heard from me. Stuart also froze my bank accounts to protect my assets. I confirmed everything and arranged to meet him the next day to sign papers and discuss my options. Next, I called Janet, my loyal secretary. She was relieved to hear from me and explained how she had wanted to quit but stayed because she needed the salary. I assured her she did the right thing. We arranged to have lunch the next day, and I promised to help her find a new job. I even decided to give her my car. That night, I slept soundly for the first time since everything had happened. The next day, I met with Stuart, signed the necessary documents, and unfroze my accounts. He recommended a skilled divorce attorney to protect my assets. We crafted a strategy, and he assured me he would manage everything. Lunch with Janet was bittersweet. I handed her job leads and my car keys. At the bank, I transferred half of the joint account to my personal account and surrendered my card for the joint account. I arranged for a charity to pick up the furniture from the house and listed the house with a real estate agent. I bought a mobile phone and took a taxi to a hotel. The answering machine had another message from Jackie, pleading for me to talk to her and admitting she made a mistake. I knew speaking with her wouldn't help, so I ignored the call. Within a few days, I found a furnished flat in New Quay. Stuart found a broker to sell my shares in the company gradually to get the best price. Simon wanted to buy them, but I was adamant about selling at market value. In New Quay, I spent my time searching for Vanessa. I visited the beach daily but never saw her. I found the remains of the house where we stayed, learning from a local that it had burned down a year ago. The local newspaper confirmed that Vanessa and her husband had lived there, but he had drowned himself, and Vanessa had vanished. I realized Vanessa wasn't coming back in any way that allowed for a relationship. I kept visiting the beach, feeling an inexplicable pull towards it. Eventually, I bought a house and an ailing motorcycle dealership nearby, indulging a passion from my youth. I spent much of my free time on that beach, waiting for Vanessa, even though I knew she wouldn't return, Jake explained. Hannah squeezed his arm. "Did you ever see her again?" she asked. "No, not until the night I met you. I thought I saw her emerging from the surf just as we were about to leave the beach. It was only for a second and then she was gone," Jake replied. "Were you in love with her, Jake?" Hannah inquired. "No, I don't think so. I liked her a lot and she was very beautiful, but I felt I owed her something. She gave me so much in those 6 weeks or 10 days, whichever it was. I'd have done anything to give something back to her," Jake said, his voice tinged with nostalgia. "Do you have her photo?" Hannah asked. Jake took out his wallet and showed her the picture he got from the newspaper office. Hannah looked at it, and her face went pale. "I've seen her, Jake. I've seen her twice. She was the waitress in the fish and chip shop. I met her again when you took me clothes shopping. She was in the fitting rooms and told me what a good man you were," Hannah said, her voice trembling. Do you think she's looking after us? Jake asked, his eyes widening. Well, if she brought you to me, I need to thank her again, Hannah said softly. Maybe she didn't bring me to you, but she made sure you were there for me, Jake suggested. The public address announced Hannah's train. They walked to the platform and kissed like teenagers. Hannah, are you really coming back? Jake asked, holding her close. You bet I am. I have to sort everything out. I don't know how long it will take, but as soon as it's done, I'll be back, Hannah promised. What about you, Jake? You're not going to disappear like Vanessa? Hannah asked, her eyes searching his. No, I'll be here. I'll wait as long as it takes, Jake assured her. He kissed her again as she got on the train. A tear came to his eye as the doors closed and the train started to move. He waved until he could see her no more, then returned to his car and drove to work. On August 2, 2003, Jake was in his element. He turned off the hose and admired his pride and joy. The Vincent black shadow gleamed in the sunlight. Jake started drying the paint and chrome work with a chamois leather. He noticed a taxi pull up but didn't look. He knew who it would be. She'd been asking about him in New Key. She stopped on the other side of the bike and waited for him to get up. Jake continued polishing. It's been a long time, Jake. You're looking good, the familiar voice said. He stood up and wiped his hands with his rag. He looked her up and down. The past years hadn't been kind to her. She was about 20 pounds heavier, and even her face looked fuller. You're not looking so bad yourself, Jackie, Jake replied, his tone neutral. You don't need to flatter me. I know how I look, Jackie said, her voice carrying a hint of resignation. So what brings you here? Was the divorce settlement not good enough? I gave you $250,000 from the house. You kept your company shares. Stuart Mackenzie said you were happy with the lump sum for Ian's child support. No, it's nothing like that. You were very fair, all things considered. Look, we can't discuss things out here. Can I come inside? For the first time since she arrived, he noticed she was carrying a briefcase. Intrigued, he invited her in. She took a moment to survey the room, clearly impressed. This is lovely, Jake. A good-sized garden, I see. And you've got 3 bedrooms, or is it 4? Just 3, but you didn't come all the way here to admire my house. What's this about? Jake set the coffee machine going and waited. It's you I need to talk to. I've come to ask you to return. Jake stopped in his tracks, his mouth agape. Jackie laughed. No, I didn't mean it that way. I'm not asking you to come back to me, though I'd consider it if I thought it would work. I'd even beg. But I know I burned my bridges with those divorce papers. It wasn't until I lost you that I realized what I really wanted. You know the saying, you don't miss your water till your well runs dry. You lost me as soon as I suspected you and Simon. You two looked like lovers on that sofa. That was it for me. How is Ian? I gather he's firmly aligned with Simon now. I tried to dissuade him, Jake. Honestly, I did. But he's an adult now. If he wants to change his name, I can't stop him. He still looks up to Simon, Jackie said, her frustration evident. Give him time. He's still young, Jake replied, maintaining his calm. Ian's had 7 years. I think that's long enough, Jackie retorted. And you? I gather it didn't work out with Simon? Jake asked, gently probing. Do you remember what you said to me as we left? Jackie asked, her voice quivering slightly. I do, and it haunted me. When a man marries his mistress, it creates a vacancy, Jake quoted, the irony heavy in his tone. It only took him a year to fill that vacancy. It didn't help that I was still in love with you. You never asked me why I did it. I've asked myself several times, and I still don't know. He was just so damn convincing. The charm doesn't last when you're together all the time. Once I caught him cheating, it was over, Jackie confessed, bitterness coloring her voice. So what's happening now? Have you found someone else? Jake asked, curious about her current life. There have been a couple over the last 5 years, but they didn't lead anywhere. You're a tough act to follow, Jake. You were always a good husband. I was a fool to let that snake convince me you were unfaithful, Jackie admitted, regret palpable in her tone. I never was. You were all I needed in a wife. I had no interest in anyone else, Jake responded, sincerity shining in his eyes. I realize that now. But it's too late, isn't it? Jackie asked, her voice softening with the weight of her realization. Yes, way too late. So this visit isn't about us. What's it really about? Jake asked, steering the conversation back to the present. We need you to come back. Back to the company. We can offer you your old job back with complete autonomy. You can take the company in any direction you see fit, Jackie explained. Asterisk, asterisk. You keep saying we, Jackie. Who exactly is we? Jake inquired, a hint of suspicion creeping into his voice. The board and the bank. The company's in serious trouble. The bank won't lend any more money unless we present a credible diversification plan. We've tried, but the clients don't believe we have the expertise to deliver. We need someone with credibility, Jake. We need you, Jackie pleaded. What does Simon have to say about this? Jake asked, his brow furrowing in thought. Ian's fine with it, but it wouldn't matter if he wasn't. He still only holds 30%. Thanks to the divorce settlement, I have 35%. The rest of the board and the banks support me. I even brought a contract, Jackie said, pulling a document from her bag and handing it to Jake. Jake poured the coffee and brought 2 cups to the table. He took a sip and looked Jackie in the eyes. What makes you think I want to come back? I'm happy here. I have friends here and I don't need to return to that life, Jake said, his tone resolute. Come on, Jake. You can't be truly happy running a motorbike shop. It lets you indulge your passion, but it can't challenge you intellectually, Jackie said, trying to appeal to his ambition. Jake's gaze shifted past her, focusing on something outside. Jackie turned to see a Toyota MPV pull up. A slim redhead got out, opened the back door, and helped 2 copper-haired children out of the car. They walked towards the front door. Jake got up and moved towards the door. Are you expecting visitors? Jackie asked. No, I'm not, Jake said as he opened the door. 2 children ran in and wrapped themselves around his legs. Daddy, why didn't you come swimming with us today? The little boy asked. Jake squatted down to their level. Because, little man, I was expecting a visitor who came all the way from London. Is she here now, Daddy? Asked the little girl. Yes, darling, she's sitting over there at the table, Jake replied. Jake stood up and hugged the young woman, kissing her affectionately. Jackie felt a twinge of jealousy seeing them together. We missed you at the pool today, Hannah said, wrapping her arm around his waist. Are you going to introduce us? They walked back to the table as Jackie extended her hand. Jake made the introductions. Jackie, this is Hannah. Hannah, this is my ex-wife, Jackie. And these 2 are Daniel and Vanessa. He bent down to the children. This is the lady Daddy was married to before he met Mommy. Hannah shook Jackie's hand, then embraced her warmly. Nice to meet you. I owe you so much. Jackie looked puzzled. What could you possibly owe me? Him, these 2, my life, basically. If it wasn't for you, none of this would have happened, Hannah explained. Well, Hannah, if you're trying to make me feel like a fool, you're doing a great job. I didn't see a wedding ring, Jackie responded, a hint of sarcasm in her voice. Once bitten, twice shy, Jackie, Hannah replied lightly. Jake, were you expecting me today? Jackie asked. After you booked your taxi last night, someone called to say you'd be coming. Like I said, I have real friends here who care about me. Now, what's the real reason you're here? Jake asked, getting to the point. I told you I want you to come back, Jackie insisted. You can't have him back. He's mine now, Hannah called from the laundry room. The company is in trouble, Jake. We've been made an offer, but it's all or nothing. I only own 35% of the shares. Simon has 30%, and the other 35% belongs to 4 shareholders. They all want to sell. Even Simon is considering it. The bank wants us to sell to settle our overdraft. I really did come to ask you to come back. If you do, I can get the others to back me, and the bank will give us more time, Jackie explained, desperation in her voice. Sell, Jackie, just let it go. Get the best deal you can, Jake advised. I don't want to. That company is my last link to our old life, Jake. I don't want to, Jackie pleaded. Let it go. Take the offer, Jackie. Let the past go, Jake repeated, trying to convince her. They won't take on our debts. I'll be left with less than 100,000. Simon will have nothing. He remortgaged his house to buy some of your shares, then lost them to me in the divorce settlement. Please, Jake, Come back and help us rebuild the company. You've done it before. If we let you do it your way, we wouldn't be in this mess. You can't be happy being a motorcycle dealer. You're capable of so much more, Jackie implored, her eyes filling with tears. Take the offer, Jackie. I'm happy here. I like what I do. Yes, I'm capable of more than selling motorbikes. That's why I have my finger in so many other pies. Just go home, take the money, and move on, Jake said firmly. Hannah came back into the room. Jackie, I'm about to start lunch. Would you like to join us? I'm sure Jake would be happy to drive you back to town later. Jackie looked at Jake and realized she was wasting her time. No, thank you. I must be going. Thank you for your time, Jake. She took out her phone and called for a taxi. No sooner had Jackie left than Hannah walked up to Jake, put her arms around his neck and kissed him. You are a very, very naughty man, Jake Lawson. She doesn't know, does she? And you're not going to tell her, are you? Right on both counts, Jake said, grinning. The last time I found something that amusing was when my ex-husband's baby came out brown. Of course, you getting me pregnant made it all the more enjoyable. Like you said, I'm a very naughty man. On September 29, 2003, some employees of Lawson Software Solutions noticed the bearded guy at the back of the lunchroom looked familiar, but their main focus was the slim redhead beside him, looking elegantly hot in her two-piece suit. Hannah waited for everyone to assemble and close the door. Ladies and gentlemen, you know CSS has been facing financial difficulties. I'm pleased to announce that as of 9 a.m., that uncertainty has been resolved. This company has been acquired by Wellard Data Services. She paused as whispers spread through the room. Wellard is a company established over the last 6 years to meet the demand for online data storage foreseen by our founder. We own 2 extensive server farms, one in Reading and another in Edinburgh. A significant portion of our business comes from companies seeking to disaster-proof their data. We've acquired CSS to enhance our value by providing bespoke online programs. This won't yield immediate profits, so we need to liquidate assets tied up in this company. Consequently, we are selling this building and relocating to Truro. No way! Shouted a voice from the crowd. Excuse me, sir, you are Ian Hamilton, project manager, and there's no way you're moving us to the back of Beyond. I'll take it to the board if I have to. Jake stood up. What code do you write, Mr. Hamilton? Ian thought he recognized the voice, and the bearded man looked familiar. I don't write code. I'm a project manager. Well, Mr. Hamilton, all our project managers also write code, so the invitation to move to Truro with us won't be extended to you. As for taking it to the board, you just have. I own Wellard, and now I own CSS again. I am the board, Mr. Hamilton. What I say goes, and I say we move to Truro. We will get enough from the sale of the London properties to cover salaries until we develop new products. If you visit Human Resources at the end of this meeting, they will inform you about the statutory severance package. Ian now knew who he was dealing with and left the room. Jake continued, If anyone else feels the same as my son, you're welcome to join him. We hope to take most of you with us, but that's your choice. We will offer a generous relocation package. As Miss Mallory mentioned, this building will be sold along with the 2 company flats occupied by young Mr. Hamilton and another young lady. We're bringing in our own management team. You've met Miss Mallory, our chief accountant. Some of you who've been with CSS for 7 years or more will recognize the returning staff. Mr. Simon Hamilton and Mr. Cockburn no longer have roles here. I'll meet with all department heads this afternoon to outline the way forward. If you have questions, Miss Mallory will answer them. Thank you. Jake left the room and found Simon Hamilton in what had been his office. Good morning, Simon. Packing up? He asked. Well, I wasn't, but if you want this office, I'll move. Nice beard, Jake. If you hadn't spoken, I wouldn't have recognized you, Simon replied. Yes, I'd like you to vacate the office and the premises, Jake said firmly. Janet, Jake's old secretary, handed Simon a box for his belongings. I thought you keep me on. It'll cost too much to get rid of me. I'll enforce my contract, Simon threatened. Simon, you should have read the sale contract. The previous owners are responsible for senior management contracts. You'd be suing yourself if you tried. What's the problem? You got $85,000 from the sale, Jake pointed out. Yeah, and I owe more than 4 times that on my house. I remortgaged it to buy some of your shares, Simon admitted, frustration in his voice. I wouldn't worry, Simon. You'll get another job soon. Maybe my son will share his redundancy pay with you since you shared your name with him, Jake said sarcastically. You haven't fired him, have you? I can't believe you'd be that vindictive, Simon said, shocked. I didn't have to. He fired himself saying he wouldn't go to Truro, Jake replied coolly. Simon packed his things while Jake waited. He picked up the box and moved towards the door. This is all strictly business, nothing personal, Simon said, considering shaking Jake's offered hand, but remembering the broken nose from last time. He decided against it and left.